Well, it looks like we might finally start getting a glimpse of the truth from the Obama administration on what happened in Libya. Except it's coming from people with now damaged credibility, and they're already heading for the exits. Fresh off his resignation from the CIA, retired four-star General David Petraeus is set to testify behind closed doors tomorrow on Capitol Hill about what happened in Benghazi on September 11th. And now Secretary of State Clinton agreed to testify next month, but she's made it clear she's not going to stick around as Secretary of State, and the White House is already looking for her replacement. As for the White House itself, it doesn't seem to know what really happened in Libya. You know, according to Obama, his critics in Washington should go after him. Well, they have been going after him with, I don't know, questions? That's the problem, Mr. President. They've been asking you questions, and you continue to play dumb and sidestep all the questions and not give answers, while we still don't know why 4 Americans were killed in Benghazi. And while we're trying to figure out what happened in Libya, the fallout over Petraeus' extramarital affair continues. You've got sex, lies, shirtless pictures, and email all bunched up into a total mess that really means one thing: a major hit to our intelligence community. Joining me right now is Brandon Webb, former Navy SEAL and editor-in-chief at SOFREP.com. My buddy from the radio, David Webb, says no relation, but hey, I don't know.
We'll keep the mystery alive.
Host of the David Webb Show on Sirius XM Satellite Radio, and Diana West, author of The Death of Grown-Ups and the columnist for the Washington Times. I'm going to start with Brandon on the military side. When the New York Times in 2007 ran that headline, Petraeus or Betraeus, I was one of the first conservatives in to defend this guy. I think we all did in talk radio especially. I remember being with Sean Hannity at the Hannity Freedom Concert. I remember holding up the ad. I remember being photographed and filmed, and I was on the stage. We all went all in for Petraeus because it felt like he was being attacked by the left. And usually when progressives attack the military, conservatives recoil and defend the military. And then it turned out that maybe he was not the most honorable guy in some aspects.
Well, I think you're going to be surprised to see what comes out, not necessarily with the hearings, but everyone I've talked to has said that it was no surprise that Petraeus had a mistress. You know, his security detail knew it from, you know, other circles. So I think that, you know, he definitely, we need some answers. But my issue is our government becomes so dysfunctional as an organization that we can't give the American people straight talk. Like McCain said, the people need to know and deserve to hear the truth about what happened in Libya and elsewhere.
Before I get to the talk radio side of it, I want to get the newspaper side of it, the journalism side of it. You know, journalists have been asking question after question after question, and in many cases willingly accepting non-answers on what is a real story. This isn't being fabricated by conservatives. This is real events in the world.
Absolutely, and I would say that it's not so much dysfunction in the government. This was a concerted effort to spread disinformation to the American people for 2 whole weeks by this White House. And I think that the story begins, the story that must be established, and we cannot have the fog of these extramarital affairs come before our eyes and take our eye off the main issue, which is who set out to decide that this story should be about a video and not a planned terrorist attack. Who told the CIA director, the Secretary of State, the United Nations ambassador, the White House spokesman, and right on down the line, and don't forget the president, to dissemble to the American people and keep us from the fact that Al-Qaeda is alive and well in North Africa and had attacked and killed 4 Americans on 9/11?
I clearly don't think Diana has a problem with conservative-minded talk radio, but when these kind of things happen, the first ones in to say, hey, wait a second, why aren't we getting answers here? Why is the president dodging? That's guys like you and guys like me. We're on the radio hitting this hard every day, taking the calls from the people saying, what's up with this?
Right, and you know me, Andrew, I like to go back to the process, what's going on here. The culture that you talk about, that Brandon talks about in Washington, D.C., the hubris that comes with men in power, that's also a bad example for our military. Our young sergeants, our E1s and up, they're being told, look, this is the UCMJ. You can't do this. Adultery is charged on the UCMJ. All these things are there, and then your leaders are running around literally doing whatever they want. But I want to go back to something that's even more fundamental to this issue when it comes to what happened with Benghazi, and that is the stated policy. The policy of this administration in Benghazi was that we weren't in a fight against terrorism, that this was a local action, and that all activities, threats and otherwise, were to be treated by local or handled by local police. So in order for them to go against that narrative, they would have to admit that their policy, their stated policy, was wrong, which is why we saw the push about the video and everything else. All of this would counter the Bush-Cheney doctrine, which said fight terrorism wherever it is and where it exists as terrorism. In order to keep themselves separate, the new Obama doctrine, they couldn't go out, and this is what's going to come out in the inquiry. Forget the salacious stuff. That's another issue. But let's deal with the process, the policy that led to the deaths of 4 Americans and why they had to stick with it or admit that their policy was wrong. And frankly, let's call it what it is. It's pretty safe to say that Susan Rice went out there and told a lie to the American people. She was either given a lie or she willingly was complicit with that lie, because they knew within 24 hours what the nature of the activity was. They watched this in the Situation Room. We'll see when those records come out.
That's something I want. I don't mean to cut you off. I want to, from the military side, we had this February 17th militia entrusted with some level of security. We had an ambassador moving from a safe location to an unsafe location. We know that the emails went out that the safe house, the consulate was under attack. From there, I mean, am I missing some? I'm not in the military. I mean, am I missing some standard procedure, some logical next step that's supposed to happen when they say, yeah, an attack is underway. These February 17th guys, they've taken off. There's mortar rounds coming in. What's supposed to happen next?
Well, I think, like David said, it's ridiculous to think that we're not fighting al-Qaeda in the Middle East and North Africa. And all the sources that I've talked to have said that the U.S. Special Operations community was conducting operations in Benghazi, and that this was a retaliation against those operations. So then you look at, okay, clearly the administration is under the or knows that this stuff is going on, and to not come clean with the American people, I think it's disgusting.
But